In this lesson we're going to talk about div, span, and usage of CSS with both of the elements. Now the div tag defines a division or a section in an HTML document, and it's used to group block elements to format them with different style, such as background, color of font, or padding of the entire content that's within the block, and so forth. Now the div element is one of the most used tag when building page layouts. You'll notice that throughout your career you will be using div way beyond the average element usage, because as said previously, it's very common when building page layouts. Now by default, when using div, the browser, just like with the p element or the hasher, will place a line break before and after the div element. And to demonstrate how this actually works, let's go to our file, to our folder, sorry. Right click on the index and edit with Notepad. Let's open also the CSS, same manner. Now let's go back to the HTML and I want to have my entire content in just one big div. So if I want to do this, I'm just going to say here div, just leave it like this, go to the end of the content and then encompass in another div. So let's save it, go back and refresh. Now as you've seen, basically nothing happened at this point. That's because there is no visual reference that the div itself is there and we can actually see it. So in order to see its boundaries, let's go back to the CSS file and let's define at first, we just say here div. Let's define a new style. Now we're going to learn a new CSS element, actually a new CSS property, which is called border, and we can define it by a few values. Let's say this one would be 1 pixel, and it will be solid, and it can be red. So where I define is that my element div sorry, will have a border that is 1 pixel thick, it is solid, and the color would be red. Now this would be the short form for the border. Just save it, go back and refresh. As you've seen, now we have a red border around the entire content. Now the rest of the content is within this newly formed div, and as you can see, the div is used to encompass a lot of content, so we can apply some style to all the content itself. Now let's see what else we can do with a div. For instance, if I'm looking here, my header, which would be this one, h1, it's actually aligned to the left border of the container, and my paragraphs are indented with 10 pixels from the left to the right, and that's because the paragraph it's specified in the CSS as padding 10 pixels, so automatically it applies a padding. In this case I want to have an equal padding for the entire content, so I just as well can do it like this. H1 again has padding 10 pixels. Save it, go back and refresh, and we have another 10 pixels around the H1 element. But again, I've just written two lines of CSS with the same value and property. Would be way better to just comment those two. Okay, and go back to my div, and let's say here padding 10 pixels. Okay, save it. Now go back and refresh. And now you can see we have basically the same result, only that it's equally for the entire elements that are contained within the div container. So now I can see how useful would be a div container on this situation. Of course, you can apply a background color, say orange. Oh, I'm sorry, it's just a name, orange. Go back and refresh, and we have a complete background color for the entire container. Of course, you can use also background image. You can specify a different color for the entire content. If I'm just going to say color white, save and refresh, everything is going to be absolutely beautifully white. So this is the way that you can use the div. Now the span, it's used to group inline elements within a document. So span on its own does not provide any visual change, just as the div. So in order to actually do some kind of visual change, we have to also apply a style to the span. But let's first do something. I want this header to be black again. And then I do not really want to go here and specify H1 would be black. Let's use a span this time. I'm just going here. I'm going to do it like this. Either link span text. Okay, because I have a start tag and an end tag. And within it's the content. So I know I have a span. Then I'm going to save it and go back to my CSS, and I'm going to say like this. Span. Okay. And I want the color to be black. And for black would be 000. Save it. Go back and refresh. And this is the way that you also work with span. Span, of course, supports pretty much the same thing that you can expect for the div itself. So you can experiment with different properties and values and see how fun would be to generate this kind of things. Of course, like any other tags, div and span supports classes. For instance, I want this paragraph, or let's say this one, to be encompassed in another div. But firstly, let me do something here so we can see which code goes where. And I'm going to do it like this. Class inner. Okay. this one will end here, so I'll be a bit further in, and we are going to save it. As you can see, we have a new div that it is contained within the first div, and this second div, it has a class called inner, and it contains this paragraph. Now I'm going to save it, go back and refresh. As you can see, after the refresh, what really happens is that the secondary div accepted the CSS statements, which are these, and that would be, it has a padding of 10, a border of 1 pixel, background color, again it is orange, and a color for the font. Now obviously you can see how this behaves. Basically the entire content of this div behaves as the rest of the content. The only difference would be that the entire calculation of the padding, borders, colors and other things are related only within the secondary div container. So we have 10 pixels indeed, but we have 10 pixels from this left side to the right side, okay? And 10 pixels here and here and here. Now, as said, we want it to be somewhat different, and then we can say inner, inner, okay? So we want to change the content. Let's change the background color and we'll see what happens, right? Color will be some kind of a grayish. So we saved and now we refreshed, and this is the result. So applying a class, we can apply different style within the content itself, and of course we can do the same thing with part of the text, and we could say span class inner span. Okay, place it here, save it, go back here, and we're going to make an inner span. Okay, span class. Then what should I do? Let's make the font with a different color. Let's make the font black. Okay, and let's make it also italic. Okay, save, go back and refresh. Ta-da! We did it. So this is the way you can work with div and span. However, for future reference, you should use the div and span with div being usually the parent, some kind of content, span, and then a div. It's much more advisable than using vice versa, and those would be span, and then div. Well, the reason is that the div itself, it's behaving as a block content, and once you place a div, this actually takes 100% with it, and it inserts a break line above and below, so it breaks anything else and forces under. Where span is just intended for inline content and it's not going to insert any kind of break after it. So if you are searching this kind of behavior, you should always use a div and then a span. Okay, we can test it here. Let's say I'm going to place a span. Okay, I'm going to save it and refresh. As you can see, we have a span that turns to black, but if we change this to div, watch what happens. Refresh. This is what happened. Exactly the same behavior as I explained. It will break the row and it will form another one because it's block content. So always make sure that you know what you're doing and try as much as possible to use span within the div and not vice versa. Okay. With this in mind, we're pretty much done with div, span and CSS at this point. So we shall move to the next lesson.